Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm doing a video series on spiritual disciplines based on Richard Foster's book called Celebration of Discipline. And today I'm going to talk about the spiritual discipline of service. When I usually think about service, I think about serving at church or going on a mission trip or something of that sort. But Foster describes service in a different way. And he talks a lot more about the everyday services that we can do. And he starts by talking about how Jesus views service. We have a sense that a servant is someone of low status who's not important, and there's important people that have authority that are on top that are being served. And Jesus didn't ever teach that everyone has equal authority, but he did say that authority is not based on status, the way we think of it as being important and less important, and it's only based on function. And we can see that in the way that Jesus, who has the ultimate authority, washed his disciples' feet. And so when we're practicing this discipline of service, humility is a huge thing. And as always, we want to make sure that our hearts are in the right place. And there's always such a temptation to make it about us and make it about, trying to impress people or just feel good about yourself. And, we can have the form of service and have the mechanics of it, like we're doing something for somebody else. But that doesn't mean that we're actually practicing the discipline of service. And so if we find ourselves, as we're going about this discipline, just having that attitude where we just want to pick and choose like what we feel like doing, and what seems like it's below us and what seems like, oh, this would be a nice thing to do. It's important to just kind of have a heart check and say, okay, God, help me to have the right attitude. And Foster describes true service as a response to divine promptings. And this goes along with kind of what I've been talking about this whole series about just the importance of listening to God's voice and being obedient. And that's really what service is about. It's not about saying yes to every single need that is in front of you, but it's bringing that before God and just being willing to do whatever God asks you to do, whether or not you feel like it or you want to, just being a servant. And so it really does take a lot of humility. And like Foster was talking about, not just in the big things, we'd almost rather do something big that we can get recognized for than just doing something small to serve somebody else. And he talks about service banishes us to the mundane and the ordinary. And when we see it like that, we're not able to just be like, yeah, I'm just going to serve once in a while, like whenever I feel like it. But it's every day coming before the Lord and saying, God, who do you want me to serve today? And just having that heart. And he talks about the freedom of service is being able to say no to the world's ideas about status and authority, and embracing just the way Jesus thinks about service. And and so I'm going to read a quote that Foster puts in his book that really describes service in a cool way, just kind of in a way that I hadn't thought about service before. So it says, it is the discipline of service that brings humility into the life. If we want humility, he counsels us to condescend to all the weakness and infirmities of your fellow creatures. Cover their frailties, love their excellencies, encourage their virtues, relieve their wants, rejoice in their prosperities, compassionate their distress, receive their friendship, overlook their unkindness, forgive their malice, and be a servant of servants, and condescend to the lowest offices, to the lowest of mankind. So when I read that, I was like, wow, like that is service right there. It's not just about doing, volunteering to do something. It's having that attitude of, it's really loving people. And, part of that is, covering their frailties, overlooking unkindness, things like that are also included in the discipline of service. And Foster talks about some other practical ways that we can serve people, one of them being hospitality. And he talks about how hospitality doesn't have to be something fancy. You don't have to have a big house and have lots of parties. It's just about having somebody over and having that community with people. He talks about the discipline of listening. It's easy to just talk to people and kind of in your mind be thinking about what you're going to say next, but not truly listening. And so listening is a service that you can do every day. Bearing one another's burdens. We tend to think that we already know how to do that. You just, go to your friend and help them out, try to fix their problem for them, and you're bearing their burdens. And Foster describes bearing one another's burdens as taking their burden not on your own shoulders, but bringing it before the Lord. And that's really kind of the heart of bearing one another's burdens, because we cannot bear them on our own, and either can the person that we're trying to bear them for, but we have to just bring that to God. And so that's a service that we can do. And then another one kind of going along with that is sharing a word of life. Sometimes God speaks to us and wants us to share that word with somebody else. And so that service is really just about when you hear God speak that to you, just being faithful to share it with that person and trusting that, God is the one that is going to speak to them through that, and you're just the messenger, and trusting that He knows what He's doing in that. So that's about it with service. And so a really simple thing that you can do every day is just pray, God, if it would please you, send me someone to serve today. And then just see what God brings you and just embrace it as it comes, and just be obedient in that and be seeking Him throughout the day for all of that. So thank you for watching this video about service. Next week we're going to talk about the spiritual discipline of confession.
I don't know.
Well, no, you didn't start.